Hey guys, and welcome to the JRB Tree Climbing channel. Today we are going to explore some further options for the Longhorn Agile friction hitch that I've got tied here on the right side. We're going to explore how we can get this friction hitch to be, number one, tied in the most compact form possible. And number two, how we can fashion the hitch such that it can be built around a fixed object in that it ordinarily is finished with two loops and we simply put a carabiner on it. Now, just for starters, I'm not going to go into great detail on how to tie it. We already have a video showing you how to tie this device. This is the Longhorn hitch. See my video for how to tie the Longhorn hitch. Think of this just like you do a Prusik loop that you have in your hand and you use to tie a Prusik friction hitch. The Longhorn hitch is used to tie a number of friction hitches, including the Longhorn Agile that you see here. See my separate video on how to tie the Longhorn Agile. And for perspective, I'm going to bring into view the JRB Ascender hitch, my other friction hitch I've introduced you to, in that it can be tied in a very compact form. It can be tied around a ring. You've seen me use this kind of a foot loop in prior designs. But the JRB Ascender can be tied, this is compact version 3, can be finished at the bottom, and therefore I can close the bottom using a series of bends around this ring and get it really compact. Now, the Longhorn Agile is always going to be a little bit bigger because it just uses more wraps and more real estate. But there is a way to get the bottom optimally compact and to also get it around a ring. But for size perspective, using 7mm cord on 9.5mm rope, this all being the same diameter, you can get an idea of the size difference. So the first example here on the right is 7mm cord again, and this is a 7-foot length. And this is what I typically cut and tie. And it turns out it's just enough room that if I were, let's say I was doing a hitch climb. In hitch climbing, what I usually do is put my carabiner here so it captures the rope, and when I ascend up, it moves the friction hitch up. But I don't want all that play in there. I want this to be optimally small. This is quite crude, but I will show it to you. Let's reorient this 180 degrees. I can just form a girth hitch here. I can just form a girth hitch on one side, put my carabiner on it, then form a girth hitch on the other side. It's just big enough for that, but you could say I got lucky with this combination. It might not work that way on your system if it wasn't tied exactly the same way. But remember this property whereby the Longhorn Agile shares slack between the two end loops. I pull on one, the other gets smaller, and vice versa. So if I had tied, this with just a couple inches less cord and I couldn't form a girth hitch on both sides, well, I could form one on just one side and get that to balance out and get it shorter. Or I might try a bull hitch on one side. As long as they're taking load at the same point and distributing load, this is very important, distributing load evenly on both sides of the Longhorn Agile, we're good. So that's pretty elementary. You didn't need a video to show you that. But if I wasn't using a carabiner, if I was using a ring, how would I get a ring inside of here? Or if I wanted to use a Longhorn Agile on my bridge loop for my bridge of my saddle, how would I get my bridge loop through here and how would I get it cinched? All right, so here's exhibit 2. Here I've got a Longhorn Agile and I seem to have done it. So how was that concocted? I'll undo it and I'll take you through it. So here I have a Longhorn Agile. It's same as this. It's just tied with slightly more cord. It's got slightly longer end loops. This is 7.5 feet. Well, again, using this property where I can make this being the Longhorn side, I'll make that shorter. I could put my ring on here, and the first method would be to simply, I could put a carabiner here, right? I could put a carabiner here and close these two ends. But I haven't made it very compact, have I? How could I make it compact? Well, and I also don't want metal touching metal. I could put this through, and I could put a carabiner here as a toggle. Now, I don't actually, even though this works, I don't really like it for life safety applications. The reason why I don't like it is because if someone was tying this in the dark and they weren't particularly careful about the size of this loop, if the size of this loop wasn't set properly or got larger somehow, it's possible for this carabiner to fall through. And we just couldn't afford that, obviously, if our life was on the line. So even though that works, I wanted to cite it because some of you will think of that. I don't want to make that my main mode of closing this. Instead, what we'll do is if this object is small enough, as it is with this ring, I will simply take this loop and pass it around the ring. And now it collapses down and it can't go anywhere. And 50% of the load is on each side because this is horizontal. So it's a neat way to get this tied around a fixed object. But I haven't made it optimally compact, right? I haven't made it optimally compact. How would I accomplish that? Well, I've done it here on the right. And I'm going to take you through this from start to finish. Let me get it untied. Okay, so with this loop, instead of 7 feet, I'm working with 9 feet of 7mm cord. Here is my Longhorn hitch. This is the supply loop. And I have the 2 load loops. And the one on the left, I have measured out 20 inches. Refer to the length specifications page on the JRB tree climbing website. And on the length specs page, you'll see that I prescribe exactly 20 inches for this combination of rope and cord. And let's get in a little tighter here and let's watch the action. So this is not a substitute for the full knot tying video. This is me tying a Longhorn Agile in real time. I assume it in this position with the tails up. I get with the loop on the left, I place it across the rope in this fashion from left to right, and I will go up 5 times around the back. That's 1, 2. I'm putting a little tension here to keep it nice and snug. That's 3, that's 4, that's 5. And as I make the 5th wrap, I go straight around and start coming down because that's just the way it loads. You can see here with the one on the right. That's the way it loads. And when I get down the bottom, I go around here 2 times. If I've done it properly, I get just basically enough room to put my finger through on this side. Could even be a tiny bit smaller. And of course, if I want to make it smaller, I just start over, right? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's make this just a tiny bit smaller. I just shorten this loop ever so slightly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because who carries a measuring tape when you're climbing trees? Might take 2 takes. And there, I got that perfect. And now I take the other load loop, not the supply loop, the load loop, and I pop it through here. I can tie that in my sleeve, and the Longhorn Agile always comes out ready to climb. I am ready to climb on that. There's no further dressing required. But these loops here are pretty long, right? So what can we do with those loops? Let's take my fixed object. It happens to be a rigging plate. It could be anything that doesn't open. And as this is the way I tied the hitch, I'm going to orient it 180 degrees so we're looking at the back side of it effectively. This is the Longhorn side, right? Because this is that nugget with the tails coming out. That's the Longhorn hitch itself. We're going to collapse this loop down nice and small by pulling on the other side. I'll just pull it down. I won't go crazy, but just big enough to get my finger through it. I then, same as the other one, I'm going to put my device, whatever it is, through this loop and put this loop through here. Okay? So this is what you saw here a moment ago, just tied with longer cord, and it hangs longer. But because it fails safe, meaning that with no stopper knot or nothing there, it always fails safe, what I'm capable of doing is I'll bring all of the slack out of it, bring all the slack out of it, make sure there's no twists and turns inside of here. It's as compact as I can get it. I'll bring this loop around the host as long as as long as I can get it around the host. As long as that, if this was a tire, a car tire, I wouldn't be able to fit it. But as long as I can get it around the host, I'll put it around there. And optionally, you can also capture the entire rope. I could capture the entire rope to give it even additional security. Let's pull the rope through. And then I'm going to tie a stopper knot here. I'm just going to tie a single overhand. Yes, a double overhand would be even more secure, but I've done a lot of testing on this. I've been climbing on this, and it turns out that the amount of tension that shows up on this stopper knot is really not that much. And as long as I give this a tug occasionally, it's fine. And although I'll double check my overhand here to make sure it's clean and it's tied properly, and it is. The overhand, you just want to make sure it's tied with two strands, but we don't want any of the strands to be overlapping one another. But that's good. I can climb on this, and it's as optimally compact as possible. And of course, this end, you could always carabiner it somewhere or whatever you wanted to do with it. Now, let's take one other scenario. What if the object that I'm putting in here was larger, and I don't have a car tire in front of me here, so you're going to have to just imagine that this is a very big object. Here's a very big object I just put through my Longhorn, and I've put that here. So I can't fit this loop around the object. Well, I can. Let's see this loop here? It's still got a little extra room in it. I can get my finger through there. Let's get this compact as possible. How do I do that? Again, I share slack with this other loop. So let's pull. I'm pulling on the other loop, and I've got that as tight as I can get it. It's giving me some friction now as I try to tighten this. Now that I've got that as tight as possible, I can make a stopper knot here. Let me make, as compact as possible, a double overhand stopper, only because we want bulk now. We want as much bulk as we can get. So it would take some convincing for me to believe that this great big stopper could ever fit through this tiny little bite. But still, I'm not going to say it's impossible. And you might not have as much experience in me in getting this all dressed and set properly, so I'm going to still caution you that if you were to go with this option, you still need to have this set in a way that it fails safe. I can't ever have a way for this to pull through. And the easiest way to do that is what I showed you a moment ago. I'll take this and I'll put it through the end of the rope. It doesn't matter, this end, top or bottom, but once I get it through there, now there's no way this could pull through, right? If this tried to pop through there, well, it's going to stop. It's going to stop because it just can't physically get through. So any of those options is a fair way to close a Longhorn Agile around a fixed object. So as I've told you before, I reserve the right to improve things. I reserve the right to make it better. Well, and I've also said this, it's very true in this knotting business, that necessity is the mother of invention. The reason I've been working on this is because you're going to see this design show up inside of a bridge design really soon. It's just that we've got to be cognizant of the fact that if my saddle was here, so if this represented my saddle bridge loop, I'm going to want this to cinch in place. So we get to decide depending on our application, how much cord to use. I might use a little bit more cord, and I might form a clove hitch using 2 strands here on my bridge loop. I might form a clove hitch. Let's see if I can do it now unrehearsed on the fly. Let's see if I can't form a clove hitch here with 2 strands. Why a clove hitch? Well, it cinches in place. It cinches. If this was my bridge loop, it cinches in place, and I would get rid of all of the slack that I can get rid of inside of there. And then I would close the contraption. Around here and put my stopper. I don't think I have quite enough cord here. Wasn't prepared to do that part of the demo. But I'm just giving you some of the possibilities. There's a lot we can do with this hitch. And unlike the Longhorn friction shackle, which I rushed to deliver earlier, this one still delivers all of the same performance characteristics of the Longhorn Agile, meaning that because I'm placing 50% of the load on each of these sides, it's still just as easy to break, and it's still automatically tending. Okay, I hope I didn't go too quick. Go see the video description and make sure you know how to tie the Longhorn, and then make sure you know how to tie the Longhorn Agile, and then you'll be ready to make it both compact and to take that bottom and effectively turn it into a soft shackle. That's what we've done here. We have taken the bottom of our friction hitch, and without using any metal device or anything mechanical, we've joined 2 entities together, and we've turned this into a soft shackle. There you go. Talk to you soon. Thank you.